That's just one of the strange delights found on Nailah Hunter's new album, Lovegaze. We found Nailah in Los Angeles, where she was more than happy to share her thoughts and feelings about making Lovegaze, the harpist and composer's first album for the Fat Possum label.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, I'll say that. And I actually just got back from a tiny little tour, and I think that it's really exciting to have a full length album out that I can play, all the way through. And it's a very different experience than kind of piecing together other parts of my catalog in live performance. So that's been really cool. But I mean, yeah, if anything, it just confirms that I am on the path and excited about making more music.
Right. So tell me about the shows. What kind of configuration did you have with you on stage, and what did you do?
So I was actually playing solo,
Okay.
and therefore, and that's the thing. I do often play solo, but for the initial album released in LA, I had synth, piano, and bass clarinet, and so there was this kind of other bed of sound underneath. So then arranging the tracks just for solo, it did land me in the direction of playing with tracks,
Uh-huh.
which is something that, as a young person in music school, always was like, ugh,
Yep.
I could never. That's awful. That's terrible.
That stigma has
But
gone away.
that stigma has gone away because it is just wild what a good sound system can do. And there was one night in Stavanger, Norway, that they had just gotten in this new sound system, and I was like re-enchanted with the material just playing there. So I think it really is all about how you use the tracks, and then if the sound system is good.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm also interested in the fact that you used a bass clarinet when you had, out of all the instruments that you could have around you. I had somebody playing a bass clarinet up here in my studio a few weeks ago, and it's a pretty awesome instrument. So just
Yeah,
being around it.
I really I love the way that the bass clarinet feels in a larger palette of woodwinds. And so even by itself, just kind of that breathy grit that you can get from a bass clarinet, I feel like that kind of encompasses the Lovegaze world really well, because there's something gauzy and breathy and ethereal about it, but there's still this darkness and this depth. And then also just some of the tracks on Lovegaze do have bass clarinet in them. So even though it's, filtered through a bunch of effects and whatnot, so maybe not as recognizable, but yeah.
And you used producer Cicely Goulder
Yeah.
to make these sounds and to make this record. How did the two of you work together? What did she bring to the table?
Yeah, Cicely was great. So it's really started off, our relationship started off as her being an engineer for my session where I was, just making the demos for this. And then she kind of called out something lyrically that she thought was incredible. And I just felt really seen in that moment. And so I was like, what would it be like if we actually like worked on this song, this demo song? The one I'm referring to is Into the Sun.
Uh-huh.
um, what would it be like if we worked on these songs together? And she comes from a piano background and is also from a music school background that we fit in there, but then also didn't. So the idea of like alternative avenues connected to classical instrumentation, I think, is something that both of us really resonated with. And, I think one of the things that she showed me that was invaluable, just in terms of me and my own production practice, is just organizing and layering vocals, like the literal process of that.
Right.
So it was a learning experience for sure.
And Into the Sun on the track, which is the final track on the album. Is that a harp that you're playing on that? Because it sounds like it, but it kind of doesn't. So I'm wondering what you did with it.
I dream of beheadings and goose feather bedding on fire
Yeah, so it's the only track. Actually, no, it's not the only track, but it's one of three tracks that has the Celtic harp that
Uh-huh.
we borrowed for the recording sessions. And it was the initial harp that I had written the demos on, sitting there improvising these words and melodies. And it just it felt like it captured this, time removed from where we are, in a way that, my grand pedal harp really didn't.
Right.
And so we just decided to keep it in there nice and dry and in your face.
So I read somewhere, I think that you started working on these songs in London or in England somewhere in the southeast of England. Is that true? And if so, well, why and how did that happen?
Yeah, so I've always been really just in love with that land even before I went there. And I think a lot of American people, fantasize about the UK, but it really is my heart's calling. And, I don't know if you know what astrocartography is, but
No?
I do have a lot of lines that intersect
Okay.
there. So that's that's its own pathway of thought. But I also had my whole team living in the UK, so it just kind of felt like may as well make a trip of it and get over there and get into a studio that they had access to. And it felt like this kind of cocoon. And then, when we actually recorded the music over again, we were in London proper,
Right.
at Cicely's home studio.
All right. But whereabout, was there a small town in southern England? Do you know the name of it?
Yes. So it's called Portsmouth, and it's really funny because, so for me, thinking about a place called Southsea, that's the name of the actual little village, if you
Hamlet,
will.
probably.
Hamlet, exactly. I do think that Southsea sounded to me like, rolling hills and white cliffs, etc., etc. And then I get there, and it's, this pebbly beach with a pier.
Right.
And I think I love this sort of bleakness that
Right.
there is to that, and the mundane that exists in a place like that. But also, having said that, I mean, that water is what it is all along the coast.
Right.
And I definitely had some beautiful rituals and sacred ceremonies with the water there. Yeah.
Is it near Southampton?
Ooh, I don't know.
The reason I ask is, believe it or not, I was born in England, and my grandparents lived in that area in a little town called Midhurst, which I've been to a few times. So
Oh,
I'm just curious as to where everything was going on there. But yeah, it sounds cool. So I'm catching on to a vibe that, because I know you were raised in the church. Your father was a pastor, but you've kind of gone into another direction, mysticism and things like that. I'm curious as to how that, just briefly, how that path got to where you are now.
yeah. I think to keep it short and sweet, as
Probably not a book about it, but
I mean, maybe that's coming. But I do think as I've grown into myself as a musician, and as I will continue to grow into myself as a musician, there's been a parallel of spiritual practice just being, braided into that, and seeing that inspiration is never far if you are aligned and listening, which is, something that I think can be addressed with spirituality more than anything else. And that includes communing with nature.
uh-huh.
And I think, Lovegaze was definitely an attempt to hold both the beauty, perseverance, and like ferocity of nature,
Right.
while also recognizing that we are, as a human race, disrespecting nature, not worthy of nature, and like we'll get our comeuppance via nature
Is it
in the coming days.
is that kind of addressed in Strange Delights, the opening track?
Swaying in the night, guardians of the light, wanderers of the night, strange delight, strange delight.
I think in a very roundabout way, and this is another thing, something beautiful about this process has just been learning the layers of meaning as it goes along. But yes, I think the video kind of helps to turn it in this direction of, oh, what is the world like when the humans are gone? Nature's still doing its thing, and there's still a lot of beauty and mystery, right? I think that that's Strange Delights is about like allowing yourself to be within the mystery of life.
Mm-hmm. Now, the more I'm talking to you, the more I'm thinking you need to come to New Zealand now, because there's something about this land. I'm relatively new myself, but the indigenous people, the Maori, and there's no mammals. There's nothing. There's just like birds and little ants and bugs and stuff. There's nothing that will eat you. Um, so,
Cool.
and there's a very interesting relationship between nature and the indigenous people here, and their stories and their, all of that stuff that goes way back. So I don't know how much you may want to check it out, because
Oh, I'm planning to. It's on my list. It's been on my list since Lord of the Rings. Okay.
I love it. I'm not sure if that's quite the way. There's probably a better way to get to it than Lord of the Rings, but that's cool, or whatever gets you there. And I'm curious. So tell me about the scene that you're part of in LA. It's been described as experimental DIY underground, which is all very cool buzzwords. But what is it exactly that you're a part of?
I think that refers to, like the Leaving Records scene, which
Right.
I love dearly. I'm gonna go to a show in a couple of days. I think the ethos of the community at large, whether it's Leaving Records or the sort of just outdoor mystic nature worship shows that happen outside of the Leaving Records zone, right? Like it's larger than just that. I think it's all about people just wanting something different for themselves in terms of what kind of venues we play. Whether it's an alcohol centric situation, it's about making change towards, I don't want to say towards utopia, that sounds cultish, but it really does feel like it's people in music and art who are looking inward and looking upward. Hmm. Wow, can't stop making it sound cultish. I don't know.
Sounds good. Doesn't sound. It's only there's no Kool-Aid involved, so we're good.
No, no Kool-Aid.
um, so, and I'm curious because so what kind of environment is the ideal kind of venue, audience vibe for you to do your thing live in? Are there some
Yeah.
places you wouldn't play, or some places you kind of are drawn to?
Yeah, I absolutely will not play in a pub or bar
Ah,
situation ever again unless it's really specific and like, no, I can't even say that because the ones that are tailored to harp performance, that's, Irish Celtic harpers
right.
who are from there doing their thing, and I have no I'm not thinking that I'm going to walk into that situation. But I will say that my ideal situation is an amphitheater.
Right.
I played actually at, it's an amusement park technically, but it was after hours at this festival called Fairyland, and it was in this amazing amphitheater. The stage that I played on after Sun Ra Orchestra, so it was already really magicked, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of it felt um extremely grounding and uplifting at once, which is not something that I can usually say about performance. And I do think being outside is really a big aspect of that for me.
Right. And I'm curious how you got hooked up with Fat Possum, because it doesn't seem like something they normally deal with, but they're fairly cool apparently. So did they find you, or
You
did you
know,
find them?
they found me. They found me after a track I released in, I think, 2021. Um, and yeah, I mean, I had really admired that label. They put out some releases that I was a huge fan of, Kaja Bonet,
Uh-huh.
and I was intrigued by the fact that they felt like it was something that fit into the larger thing. And I think um, alternative is something that I've always kind of thought made sense
Yep.
with me, and that's the lens. And it's been really, really nice working with a label in this way. It's much different than any other label that I've worked with, but yeah, the team over there is great.
Okay. Now I'm going to get into something you may not want. So the perspective of the U.S. from afar, from outside, it seems, especially these days, it's like every day you wake up and there's like a new mass shooting, or Trump has said something outrageous, or some
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's a good, wholesome place to be, and it seems like it's getting worse rather than better. I'm sorry to say all that, but from your perspective, with the kind of music that you play, does it feel like it's the kind? Is it harder for you to be creative and to be in the place where you need to be to make your music?
That's interesting. Like in terms of why I went away to make this music
Oh, that's
in a
true.
way.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, either way, addressing it without that
Yep.
aspect first. Yeah, like the U.S. is a scary place right now. It's the Wild West in a bad way,
Yeah.
and it's a place that I used to imagine that I would just leave. I was like, I'm gonna flee. I'm gonna go back to Haiti or Belize, but then you realize everywhere is terrible. And sure, we have our gun control and healthcare situation that is specifically bad to here, and I do want change there. But no matter where you are, all you can do is affect change around you, right?
Mhm.
And I think, if anything, being here right now as myself in this body doing what I do is going to make an important impact here.
Right.
So I may as well stay and just ride with the land, and pay my respect here. But it's definitely, it's not something I'm excited about.
Okay. All right. Yeah. On a more optimistic note, are you thinking about musically what you want to do next after this record's kind of run its course?
I mean, there's a lot of irons in the
Oh,
fire
cool.
right now. I feel like the scoring projects are coming in, and that feels very aligned with what I want to do in terms of just kind of being in the home, being here on the American land, right? To
Right.
to build my family, et cetera, et cetera. But I also have just been loving playing piano ever since I got back from Scandinavia. I have been, locked in piano land. So I have this feeling there's a piano centric album in me.
All right. That sounds definitely something to look forward to. All righty. Yeah. Come down, visit New Zealand. We'd love to have you and hear you.
Love that so much. Thank
I
you.
know. Bye bye.